Hello and welcome back. So this is part 2. It's related to the Redux. So if you are new, so please go and watch the previous series and previous session, and this is the next session of it. So if you are going to continue still, so this is nothing really special. What we have done initially, we have created few actions, and then we have created a reducer for that, and that we connected that reducer, the counter reducer, to the our create store, and this store I have subscribed, and whenever something some action is getting dispatched, that value we are logging it out. So this is how we just tested out. This is the first step to understand the basic level how reducer work. So we are going to just comment it out, because as of now it is not required this way, because this is not logical at all. So we will use with our application level. So what we will do in our structure manner, so that in every place whenever you required to global data, or whenever you required connecting with your store and getting the record, so how you can do that. Okay, so first of all, let's create two folder. One is actions, another one is reducers. Okay, in the action, what I'm going to do, create a file. Let's say it's a index.js. In this index.js, I'll create not default as a named label, export const increment, a function name I'm just providing. It's just a function, and it may take parameter, but as of now it's just a flat function, or it will return something called, as I explained earlier, it will return a type. What is type of it? And increment. Okay, so this is the simplest one. So what we have defined over here is a increment function. This is just returning a type. Okay, it's just an object, that's it. Okay, now there is a good part to understand reducer, because this increment is going to used into this, but how it is going to use it is a very logical way. So just keep understanding and keep watching. So let's create here the reducer name. I'll put here is the index.js. I'll create one more reducer. Let's say reducer is counter.js. Now I'll create one more reducer. Let's suppose if your application is logged in or not. So login.js. So it will be related to the login stuff. So basically the concern of it, if I have multiple reducer, so how will I manage them? So let's create our counter reducer first of all. In this counter reducer, what I am going to do, simply I'll create const counter reducer, and in this counter reducer, as I explained, reducer required two things. First parameter is what is the current state of your application, or whatever reducer you are defining, the state of it, and the second is the action. So as I said, these two parameters are very necessary while doing the some logic over here. So the logic which required, so switch, and I'll put here type action dot type. If the type is matches, so let's say case, if case is matches over here, so as we declared our action, so it was increment. Let's do the increment. Once if it is matches the case, not here actually, if it is matches the case, so let's return something, return state and +1, as similar example which we were doing. And if there is a no case matching at all, so what we will do, we will do the default, and in the default, as you know, we will return the our current state, whatever state we have. We are nothing plus minus or nothing. So let's return state, whatever state currently we have. So this is the combined counter reducer it is. And if we need to use it somewhere, what we have to do, we have to export it. So how do I do that? So not export actually, export default, and reducer name is counter reducer. So this is the way how we define our counter reducer and how we have exported this. Okay, let's similarly create logic of or if application is logged in or not. So why I'm doing this over here, I'll explain you. So I'll make it login reducer, and state, let's say, is blank or logged out, or you can say state is false initially, and if action is sign in, so what I'll do, I'll return the opposite of it, not state, false, otherwise whatever the current state. And then instead of this counter, what we will do, we will do login reducer. Okay, so we have combined this define this to reducer. Now what we have to do, now let's close these. Okay, let's go to our app. Okay, not here where we have app used. Okay, this is the great place to use and define our store and use it. So how do I do that? As I explained you earlier, we have to create a store, and then into that we have to specify the counter. So example white I have imported already. Let's uncomment this. So we have a create store. So let's do that again, const store and create store. If you remember, so it's required a parameter. Parameter is nothing about a reducer. So the reducer we have which created, there is a 3 reducer. Actually it's a 2 which we have not used index as of now, but login reducer and counter reducer. So if I try to use counter reducer, it's not defined yet. Let's import here, import counter reducer from, this is the place, not in this directory, reducer, and then there is a counter. Yes. So let's suppose if I provide counter reducer here, and similarly if I import our login reducer, and here login. Okay, if I would like to use both of them in my store, so what I have to do, so here if I try to use it, as you see, counter create store required reducer. If I use counter reducer, and if I try to use login reducer, so another parameter, we both can't use similar, this counter reducer as well as login reducer. So that's why there is a something called is in between there is a mediator is required, while you can see there is a combine reducer. Okay, so what is combine reducer and how it work actually? So let me give an example. So for that we have already created an index file inside. Instead of doing or initializing here all them, let's do a single file and manage that single file over here. Okay, so we will just work over here. Meanwhile, just go to this reducer index file. What we have to do, we have to combine all of them, all the reducer which we have created, and create combine reducer for that. So what I'll do, I'll first import them, import, and reducer name will be counter, and here counter, not counter, counter reducer, and another one will be login, and here login reducer. Okay, so these reducers I have imported. Now it's time to import the thing which we required from Redux, actually Redux, and this is going to be a named import, and it's a combine reducer. So what combine reducer do, let's just give a semicolon over here. I'll create a const, and then I'll say all reducer, or what you can say root reducer. Okay, and this will give you a good example of it. So this is a root reducer, and then combine. Okay, so combine, which we have defined over here. So combine reducer, in this combine reducer is a function, of course, and it's taken object parameter, what objects, and these are the thing which I would like to use them. So whether it's this one or this one, any one of them. So whatever you would like to import them, so it will be combined with them. So I generally use this if it is using login. So I'll say login, and then name of the reducer. So login reducer, comma, and if I would like to use the counter, so if I say counter and then counter reducer. Okay, some people do this not defining like this login reducer, and directly they use what is called login reducer, because ES6 provide you don't need to type multiple time like login reducer this way, because it's the same thing. But if you would like to change something or some naming convention, so that this is going to be useful in our code level. Okay, so if it is a meaningful name, then it will be easy. So what we have done here, we have combined them. It's not very special case or logic we have implemented. We have just combined the both of the reducer in the combined reducer, which is provided by the Redux. So let's do just export them, export default, and say root reducers. That's it. Let's save this file, and let's go to our index file where we were struggling with multiple reducers. So what we have to do, instead of multiple we were trying to do, let's import one reducer. Import the location which we had is this is reducer, and initially actually it's an index, so I don't need to use, because Webpack will automatically identify that. And what name we were provided over there, so it was root reducers. Okay, and now it's both combined into that, so I can directly provide root reducer. So our store will have our root reducer. Okay, so this is the one simplest way to combine multiple reducer and use them in a single location. Now reducer is assigned. How do I use in our application? That is important. Okay, for that, let's suppose the store is created. I can't do again and again like consoling and subscribing and dispatching manual action. So let's do something called, which is provided by Redux reducer. Okay, so let's import react-redux, and it's provide something called provider. Okay, it's provide something called provider. The name is very funny, but it's provider actually. So actually let's remove this existing code. It's taking too much space. So here what I have to do, I have to use here the provider. So provider, and in this provider just wrap this this app component, which is the root of your application, and in the provider you have to provide this store, to which we have already created. Whatever name you have defined over here, you have to just provide a name of it. So let's suppose store, or if you have created my store, general store, whatever store you have created, just provide a name of it. Just save these changes, and everything we have done, like this is provider required store, we have created store, create store required reducer, we have created root reducer, and root reducers combined with the two thing, login reducer and counter reducer. So if you go for the counter reducer required an action, and which increment, if it is increment, then it will execute something. So these things we have done. So let's quickly check it out in our application whether it's working or not. Let's refresh this. And how do I know my reducer and my store is defined? So let's make it a little bit big so that you can usually see that. So I have installed one extension called Redux Dev Tool. I highly recommend you go for this and install this first of all before using, because it's very helpful. So I have already installed this thing. I recommend you to install this. So once you install this, so you will getting this option like Redux, and if I refresh, you can see it is not been used. Okay, so no store found. Okay, so let me try if it is already running, or the store. Okay, so I think I have done properly, but I'm not sure actually. So let's yarn start again. So I'm not identifying any issue, but and it is not showing your store is connected, and generally it has to show like your counter or this thing is having state, but I believe I have not used as of now this store, that's why. So what could be the reason? Let's resolve this. I understand the reason why it is not showing. So let's quickly do this thing. Okay, so here I'll create s2 or s3. I'll say counter is a function, functional component. So I'll say counter, and I would like to showcase here the counter value, whatever counter having as an initial state, whatever we have. So here I would like to showcase here. So how do I get that counter, and how do I use state Redux in my functional component? So you can say use selector actually. So use selector. So what selector will do, selector will connect with your state. Okay, it will connect with your state, and whatever state, if the state is exist, or if it is exist with your application, then it will return the value. So if I say counter here and counter, and I have not imported this use selector, so let's import this. So you can see is imported from react-redux. So counter is here, and as I know, so I have used here state.counter, so current state, and what value I needed from there. So I needed counter. So let's actually use this counter. Okay, and let's save this. So as you can see, the current counter I am getting, or here I'm not able to see, I'll tell you the exact reason, but you can see the counter initial value is 0, and let me change value and say if it is counter value is 20, initial value is 20, whether it will working or not. And let's refresh this. Yes, it is working, but why I'm not able to see over here the Redux which I have already installed? So there could be a multiple reason if it is not properly connected. So as I can say, my application is properly connected and it is giving me the initial value. So let's go back, put it 0 over there, because this is what we had. So why it is not connected? We have to do a logic here. I mean, in our this create store, while creating store, I have to provide one optional parameter so that it will connect our browser. Whatever changes we are doing, the initial values or maybe action or something, it will reflect over here. So that's why we have to follow the instruction. The instruction is what? Here it goes. So the extension, what you have to do, you have to add, if you're working with the basic Redux, you have to add this thing in your definition of create store. So let's copy this line of code. Okay, and here we have to provide it. So once we provide that, and now let's close this, let's refresh this. Now you can say this is what we were expecting initially. So if you see, this window is very useful and it has so many things. So I'm not going to cover everything, but as I explained you, so this has many things. It has action, it has state, it has difference, trace, taste, everything. So currently we require action and difference, I'll tell you. So you can see the login is by default false and counter is 0. So if you see in this here, as we provided the name, there is a login, there is a counter. If I say login app and save it in your application, here you will say login app and counter. So that's why we were saying whatever name you will provide, that will appear in your state. Okay, I hope you are getting my point, what I'm trying to explain you. So this is the current state. Okay, now there is few couple of things which we are just a way to increase the counter or decrease the counter. Obviously we have not designed any logic or counter plus plus or something. So what we do, we will quickly define here one button so that we can oops, we close the by default. And let's open this part because we needed that. Okay, excuse me. Let's close this. This is not needed at all. This one as well. Here we are in our application. Let's create a button over here. So button, and in this button just like count by 1. And this count by 1 will have on click a function. This on click, not this one, curly braces, this on click will require a call. I mean, it will be calling something. So that increment which we have defined, that action, this one I'm talking about, this increment action. So that increment action I would like to use over here. So like saying like increment, as of now it is not there in definition or is imported. So let's import that import statement, and where it is going to, it's going to be in action actually. So action, or the name will be increment. Okay, so I have imported that, and whenever I'm trying to click on this, okay, so it is taking me here. So let's save these changes and count by 1. And if you try to see over here and in your Redux as well, so try to see this value is getting changed or not. So if I click on it, nothing is getting changed. Reason, because what I'm doing here, we are calling this increment, but directly calling, there will be just a return statement. Nothing will happen because it is not connected with anything. It is connected with only, this reducer. So there is no logic behind calling directly to this increment. So what we have to do, we have to use dispatch here. So let's import use dispatch, and now once dispatch is there, then you can dispatch your action. You are getting my point? So what I'm trying to say, you can dispatch an action, you cannot directly call an action. Okay, so according to the logic I'm saying, you can do whatever thing you would like to do. Let's do this const dispatch okay, and use dispatch. So I have instantiated this. So here what we have to do, we have to wrap this thing dispatch, and now you have to provide the your action name. So currently what action name we have? Increment. So here's the increment action. You have to just provide like this. So now just save the changes, and now if you press, now you can see the value is getting increased, and here as well, say you can see the value is getting increment. Similarly, if you have another approach, let's suppose if you would like to decrement, so decrement by minus by 1 instead of increment, let's say decrement. I don't think so decrement is there in action. Yeah, let's create quickly. Decrement, and let's save this, and here decrement function, and save the changes. There's a 2 button, so minus count by 1 or minus by 1. So currently it's 11. If I minus, so it is getting fired, this one, and this is getting decrement. And now this is exact point where we have to identify whether this is connected to our reducer. So if I go here, you can see there is only one state, so that's why it is returning the current state. The action is getting dispatched. You can see decrement is getting dispatched, but there is a no state change. Why? Because I have returned the default, because if increment does not match, it will return the default. So what we have to do, just make it a clone of it, or say whatever action we have passed, in the uppercase, similarly it should match, and minus by 1. Okay, let's save these changes, and if I refresh, even initial value with 0, if I increase or if I try to decrease, the value will work. So similarly, if it is plus, minus, whatever, so logic you have to apply. Now sometime what you can do, or most of the time you have to require your increment or decrement, or let's suppose you don't want increment just count by 1, you may want some value. Let's suppose you want count increase by 10. Okay, so what you have to do, you have to pass here the value, how many value you'd like to increase. So this value, this increment value here need to be handled or maybe received. So basically this is called payload actually. So here we have required a payload, and that payload is going to be here, or you can say value, and here it required payload, and you can see the value which is there. So this value is connected here, and whatever we are passing here, we are passing 10. So 10 we have passed, then 10 we have received over here, then we are passing to payload. Now we get the payload. Now what I have to do, I have to pass this payload to the reducer as well. So here we are getting action dot type, we got here. Now similarly we can take action dot payload as well. I'm just giving an example, you will very easy to understand. This is not very difficult. If you try one by one small pieces, how all this part is getting combined each other, or falling apart. So this is how it is working. So just refresh again and let's try. So count by 10 is 10, 20. So you can see in increment you are getting a payload. You can see the number how much you'd like to increase. The logic we have written based on that, and the minus as usual by 1 because we have hard coded the value. Yes, so that's why it is happening like this. So this is how it is, defining a reducer, combining reducer, dispatching an event, and using it, real life your application. So far so good what we have done. Let's quickly recover and cover those part what we are doing and what we have done so far. So let's start with this. I have created a store using this Redux, and createstore required a root reducer, which I have defined over here in the reducer folder is the index file. In this we have combined two reducer and combined reducer provided by the Redux, and then I have just provided the name so that they will be visible in my here state. Okay, so this part is very much clear, I hope. And then this line of code we have used to showcase this window so that we can understand what is my current state and all. Once your store is available, what you have to do, you have to wrap this your application, root of your application with a provider. So here's the provider, and provider with a store, which store you would like to connect. So current store is my the store name whatever we have provided over here. So this is my store name. Next part, here's the counter, here's the index. Index is basically combine, and then there is a login. We have not used login, but just to demonstrate, we have in combine we have created this login and just defined so that we can see multiple state can be used. Or similarly, if you would like to use in your application, you can use is a similar way, the way we have used in counter. And this is the counter. So far so good, and we have just exported default. How we have used in our application, let's explain one by one. In our application, useSelector will help you to connect with your store, the current state, and which you would like to use. If I would like to use over here another selector, so what you have to use here, login. If you'd like to use here login, you have to just provide the name of it, whatever name you have. So let's copy paste, here's login. So now you have the login. So if you'd like to see what is my login status, so here I can say h2 current login status, and here if I say login, so currently you can see there is a no action. Okay, that's why. And if you see the login reducer, by default it is false, and state, if it is not called, so this is just false, so it is not going to show anything. And if I say login sorry, my typo mistake, logged in, so you can see the value is logged in. Okay, so this is what we have done so far. And to dispatch any action, so here we have defined useDispatch, and then we use our actions, increment and decrement. So this is so far so good, we have covered. If you want more videos or any real life scenario you would like to cover, or you want me to create a shopping application where we have add to cart, going to product page and doing a number of things, so that we can also do that. But if you let me know these are the required things you'd like to know from my side, so I will make a time for that and I'll create video for it. So I hope you guys enjoy. So please do like, share my video and comment down what things you'd like to know more about it. So I hope this is very basic and clear to you. I think most of the people get confused in Redux understanding first time. So I tried my best and hope you liked it. If you liked it, please share with others so that my videos get top ranking or maybe more higher, so that easily people can find for something like this. Okay, so thank you for your time and hope you enjoy. Please like, subscribe to my channel, and once again thank you. See you next video. Bye.